everyone, and welcome to China EVs and More. The next hour or so, my co-host, a Maryland Lei Xing, will go over the week's most important and interesting news coming out of the global EV, AV, and mobility sectors. What Lei and I discuss today is based on our opinions and should not be taken as investment advice. For those that are new to the show, welcome. And to our loyal listeners and viewers, welcome back. We ask that you smash those subscribe and like buttons so you don't miss anything from us in the future. I'm confident that Lei and I are two of the most knowledgeable people in the world doing this. So help us get the word out about this show to others. My name is Tu Li. I'm the managing director at Sino Auto Insights, a global management consultancy that helps organizations bring innovative and tech-focused products and services to the transportation and mobility sectors. I write a free weekly newsletter that we pull many of our discussion topics from. You can sign up for it at sinoautoinsights.substack.com, which of course I encourage you all to do. Arriving on Sunday with Tu Lei into Shanghai, can you introduce yourself?
A volleyball tourney dad about to hit the road, Shanghai bound. This is your co-host Lei Xing, former chief editor of China Auto Review, and this is episode number 207. Shanghai. It's that time of the year, and things are getting more and more exciting. There's more news coming out. They have been coming out the last few days, and I think we'll reach a climax by the time we get to the start of the auto show, which is next Wednesday, the 23rd, which it starts. And the fireworks have been coming out. There's press conferences basically every evening, every day since last week, up until the press day, which has 193 press conferences. So good luck running around. I guess we can start off with the auto show, previewing some of the new models, new initiatives.
No. Let's start with
or do you want to?
What we did this week.
We can do that. I mean, and then we can leave the Shanghai at the end.
Okay, let's do that, dude.
I was in New York.
Where were you, Lei, this week?
I was in New York at the New York Auto Show, New York International Auto Show, a tune-up for Shanghai. That was my fourth consecutive year attending, and probably most memorable because BYD made history by becoming the first Chinese brand to win one of the World Car Awards. The BYD Seagull, known as the Dolphin Mini in overseas markets, won 2025 World Urban Car of the Year Award. And I was actually contemplating about going or not. It's a 3-hour drive for me. And I was like, they're in the final 3 in the voting. And I was like, I could be witnessing history. I got to go. So I left at 4 in the morning to drive down to New York. And lo and behold, Stella Lee was there, the senior executive VP. She was there to accept the 2025 World Car Person of the Year Award. So it was a double winner for BYD. And I think as soon as I saw her go up on stage, I had a hunch that they're going to get the Urban Car of the Year Award. And as it turned out, they did.
Did she say hi to you?
I did. I talked to her, and there's some exclusive info that we can share right on the show of what some of the things that she talked about.
Right on.
And I think it was very inspiring to see her. I mean, she's a petite person. I mean, I'm 6'2". She's probably, 5'5" or something. But she's powerful. Like when she went up on stage and talked about how BYD started 30 years ago with 20-person and $350,000 investment. And she joined in 1996 as a ad salesperson from a magazine. And the story she shared was about how in the beginning she was tasked to grow the international business. So she set up the Hong Kong office, European, Chicago, LA, obviously, their big presence in LA. And then she thought about giving up because it was difficult to convince the overseas customers at the beginning that they were trying to supply batteries for Nokia. And then she shared a very interesting story about the character in Gone with the Wind, Scarlett O'Hara, the character in that movie. And the famous word that she kept on talking about was, tomorrow is another day. And Stella said, it was her favorite movie and her favorite quote. And that was what drove her to continue, to not give up. And she's like, we're still a small company. She was being very modest. BYD is the 6th largest automaker in the world. And she's like, we're still small, but now looking back, 30 years of not giving up, you reap the reward 30 years later. So I think it was pretty inspiring.
Was it?
Listen to her. Yeah. That's what I got out for being there. I think I made a good decision to be there. To see
Was it not lost on you that she's accepting these awards in a country she doesn't sell her own vehicles? I'm sure it wasn't lost on her.
That is exactly. And afterward, when I talked to her, and she's like, she reiterated that they're not planning to sell in the US and Canada, but everywhere else, Europe, Latin America, Southeast Asia, rest of the world.
Well, they're already there. They announced Slovakia this week.
Yeah.
And one other Eastern European country, I believe.
Here's an exclusive of what she told me. They just opened up a showroom in Dubai, BYD showroom in Dubai. They're in preparation to launch the Yangwang brand, the U8 and the U9 in the Middle East. And in about 6 months, and they're currently doing homologation in the desert because of the heat. And she was saying they need to make sure that the electronics work
robustly.
So yeah. And then 2, Denza, same thing. They just announced the entry of Denza into Europe at the Milan Fashion Week, I think last week. And going forward, she said, similar to XPeng, that overseas sales will account for 50% of BYD global sales. And yeah. And additionally, a lot of, at the New York Auto Show, a lot of...
Let me stop you there, Lei. Yeah. They're forecasted to sell over 5 million units, probably with a 4-to-1 split between China and international sales. So if we get to 50%, we're getting close to 10 million units, right?
It's not out of the question. It's not, that's where I think they're headed.
Like a laser, not slowly, not gingerly, like a laser.
And she mentioned there's a lot of tariffs. So I asked about this kind of the European market, and she's like, we're building a plant in Hungary. We're building in Brazil. We may have additional plants outside of those, and those are on track. But remember, the decisions were made well before this tariff thing. So she said PHEVs, BEVs, I think she still expects to be about 50 for the short term, not only in terms of global sales share, but in terms of what they export into Europe and other countries. So I think she's like, the tariffs is...
That's surprising to me because although their tariff is lower on the BEV side than their competitors in Europe, you would think that because there's only a 10% lift on PHEVs currently into Europe, that the PHEVs would pull stronger. So that's a little surprising.
Well, it is, as we saw in the latest March numbers, PHEV export growth is considerably higher than BEV growth. So there's a kind of a sign.
Well, that's only going to get larger as XPeng launches its EREV and Li Auto gets in to a few of these different markets as well.
Yeah. I think seeing her there and also looking back, my four-time New York Auto Show last year, the Seal and the Dolphin missed on two of the awards, and the year before, or a Good Cat was one of the finalists, but it did not win. Coming to it, I was like, eventually it's a matter of time. As I
Can
posted.
we zoom out a little bit, Lei? Can you tell us who the finalists were that they beat?
So one of it was the Hyundai Inster or Casper Electric, which won the World Electric Car of the Year. So, and the other one I think was the Volvo. No, the other one was the Mini Cooper Electric. So if you look at those three models, the Seagull, the Inster, and the Mini, I think for anyone who understands well the Chinese market and the auto industry, they probably would have picked the Seagull because and she was saying that it's not a cheap or a no-frills car. It's a high-tech, well-designed with highway NOA. Remember the God's Eye? So it's got all the features. It's not like a entry-level EV, affordable. It packs a punch. And
It's
I think
funny that you say that because in this week's newsletter, I still see narratives that aren't accurate in the media. There's still people, and maybe this is more political to get people on their side, but there's still a little bit of talk of subsidies and a home market advantage that has really lifted a lot of these companies. And in my newsletter, I argued we should erase cheap from the adjectives when we generally describe Chinese EVs and replace that with value. And what you just told me says that the Seal provides a lot of value.
the Seagull, yeah.
The Seagull, sorry, provides a ton of value. And I think that's BYD's sweet spot.
And she was, it's funny. She was talking about, so she had two speeches. She gave the acceptance speech for the World Car Person of the Year, and then she accepted the award for the Urban Car of the Year for the Seagull. And she was talking about the Seagull, and she was like, you can take it to the beach. It has vehicle to load capabilities. You can make your coffee there. And more exclusive, they're launching a derivative called the Seagull Surf soon. So more derivatives, and they just launched this new I forget the name, based on the yuan up. I forget the name for the overseas market. A smaller, bigger version, bigger than the Seagull, but smaller than the Song. So they're pushing.
Always pushing. Stella is, I think that's the only mode she has is to move forward. So
and then the challenges of going forward, she said they planned more exclusive numbers and data that she shared. They want to have 1,000 dealerships in Europe by the end of this year and double that by the end of next year. Think about that. And she said the challenges for her will be to grow the sales and after sales service team. She wants the service part of it to be up to standard as well. Now they're pushing the volumes.
let's remember that she's more concerned about the service side than the actual manufacturing side. Because Hungary, she said, she's just going to be in Brazil. What other country? So Brazil, Poland, Hungary,
Turkey,
Thailand, India, Turkey. The manufacturing footprint is going to get exponentially more complicated. We're talking likely batteries shipping from China to the rest of the world, not sales, but for their own vehicles. And it should be noted that the SU7, and I'm just jumping off topic for 1 second, the SU7 that crashed and burned was using BYD batteries. So just an FYI, not saying that it was the BYD battery's fault. I'm just saying that I'd heard that or I'd read that yesterday. So it just tells me that they are so ready on the manufacturing side that she's just nervous about being able to support the sales of all these vehicles.
I get the sense that she doesn't worry about the volumes at all of being successful in terms of market leadership outside of China. I don't think she was worried about that at all. But she's...
And I guarantee you, Lei, she flew in because it was in the United States. I'm certain of it. Now, she would have probably gone if it was Europe, but she made a point to be here.
Yeah, I believe they were leaving. I think they left for China last night.
I'm sure she doesn't fly commercial.
Well, that's another story. I think it was really the first time that I got to kind of talk to her in depth a little bit. And the aura she had was really powerful. I think for a petite person, for a woman. I mean, we've seen her all over the world. We saw her in Paris,
Munich,
right?
Paris,
to give that
Munich,
Munich.
China, obviously.
I saw her in LA.
Beijing and Shanghai.
Beijing and Shanghai. Yeah.
She commands a room.
She does.
For certain.
I mean, especially when she shared that Gone with the Wind quote in that audience, right? About not giving up and
well, that's how you hook people. In the United States, you talk about American classic movie. And so she is speaking to the people of the United States. She's not speaking to the government. She's speaking to the people of the United States. And she wants something in order to be able to be relatable to Americans. She pulled Gone with the Wind out there. Now, I was on John McElroy's show yesterday, and Sam Abulzamid was at the New York Auto Show. He also said that Subaru and Hyundai were
and I should share another exclusive on Hyundai.
Go ahead. Did you go to any of those other pressers?
I was at the Hyundai press conference where they revealed the 2026 Palisade. I think
PHEV, correct?
Well, hybrid.
Hybrid, yep.
And there's the XRT Pro edition, but beautifully designed. I think they're in a sweet market for the US for that car, the segment. And
so Hyundai is owning the coastal auto shows.
Yeah, the New York and the LA. We might be biased a little bit since I'm a Hyundai hybrid owner and you're leasing a Hyundai Ioniq 5, right?
EV and a petrol.
Yeah. So
and he has the Santa Fe.
Jose Munoz is his first appearance since becoming the global CEO of Hyundai Motor Company, the brand Hyundai Motor Company. 100 days on the job, and I talked to him afterward. I asked him a China question. I asked him, where's China rank on your agenda? And are you reestablishing the Chinese market with a new strategy? This is what he told me. We have decided to commit to the Chinese market and triple down on China. He did not use the word double down. He used the word triple down, which is actually the first time ever I hear of that term, triple down. And I think they're working on a new strategy. They're not exhibiting, the Hyundai and Kia both, they're not exhibiting in Shanghai. But they do have new BEVs coming out. Beijing Hyundai has been teasing a new electric SUV based on a new platform. And I asked him about that, and he's like, well, we're not sharing anything on China yet, but as you know.
And we know, historically at least, Genesis has, in the past, really tried to make loud splashes. I think that's my phone.
Yeah. No, I think it's my fault. It's my... Apologize, my volleyball group sending texts. Yeah.
But no, back to Genesis. Remember they had that drone show a couple of years ago launching the GV9?
I don't remember, but they did show a concept, the X Grand Equator concept, which I think was awesome looking. Luxury combined with off-road and the kind of the Genesis vibe. But as you know, Hyundai, Kia, Genesis, they're killing it in North America, but they're irrelevant in China. And interestingly enough, BYD is killing it everywhere in the world except the US and Canada. And I got to think about BYD and Hyundai Kia. Actually, I realized they share a lot of similarities of sticking to the strategy. They're kind of, Hyundai Kia has become Korea's Toyota, and BYD has become the Chinese Toyota. And the successes that they've had, I think they share some similarities of sticking to the strategy, just beautifully designed, relevant products. Every model that Hyundai and Kia have launched in the US is like a home run. Quality design, quality product. Me being an owner, I can attest to it. So that's what I got out of New York.
Is that the new world order then in the automotive space? Hyundai,
And
BYD, Toyota?
that's the last thing I'll share about New York Auto Show is I talked to the chairman of the World Car Awards, Siddharth, and he said this is now a sign of the times, that it doesn't matter. It's still a global game. It doesn't matter where your root is. As long as you launch quality, relevant products into the market, it'll work. It'll work out. And BYD
So,
and Hyundai Kia is a perfect example of that.
to drill home your point about Hyundai, Kia not being relevant in China, BYD not being relevant in the United States,
For different
looking
reasons.
looking forward to the Auto Shanghai 2025, all the foreign legacies are there to show off to the Chinese consumer. Whereas the Chinese companies showing there are indirectly showing to the rest of the world. And so there's this dichotomy that is in your Jose Munoz comment hits at home. All these foreign legacies are tripling down on the China market, and the Chinese EV makers, XPeng on the 15th had a global brand summit in Hong Kong. It was shown to the world effectively, and there's parallels. They want to be a flying car company, a robotics company, an AI company, and so that sounds pretty familiar to me.
Well, what I remember about the XPeng event was that tree that they show on the presentation. Electrification at the bottom, in the middle is AI, and then you branch out to the AI car, the robots, the flying cars. I mean, that gives you a quick understanding of what XPeng wants to do.
So let me talk about for a few minutes what I did this week.
Yeah, it's
Monday,
relevant, very relevant.
Monday through Wednesday, I was in San Diego for a Qualcomm event, and they specifically targeted non-automotive journalists with the exception of 2 or 3. More were, I think, technology research folks. So I don't thank you, Qualcomm, for inviting me. I don't normally go to these things because I get invited sometimes, not to every single one or a ton of them, but I don't really care to hear auto companies kind of regurgitating what is already out in the market. But for Qualcomm,
let me stop
it was
you there
interesting.
for 1 second. One context and backdrop. The CEO of Qualcomm, Cristiano Amon, was one of the guests at the China Development Forum a few weeks ago, and he had a whole photo op with Wang Wentao, the Minister of Commerce.
Well, that's because almost every single Chinese EV player is using Qualcomm silicon.
And Jensen Huang was in China just now, right?
2 days ago.
Yeah.
Or yesterday. Yes. So we know about Snapdragon running the infotainment. They have a digital chassis that has intelligent driving, and the infotainment goes a little bit deeper. It has an app store and helps with payments and things like that. So as I'm sitting and it was, with the exception of the head of the automotive division, all the VPs were there, and it was great. access to them. There's only about 20 of us. So asking a lot of questions, a lot of follow-up questions. It wasn't like one question and then no time for anything else. And so I learned a lot, and they're going to send over the slides. So I'll talk a little bit in more detail the next time we're on together. But what I felt was their clients are everybody, just like NVIDIA. If you're a serious player in infotainment, you're likely running, at least in the West, you're likely running Unreal Engine and you're using Snapdragon Silicon. They wanted to emphasize that they also have this solution, hardware, software stack for intelligent driving. So using the entire suite is going to really allow OEMs to move quicker. And that was, they didn't say this, but that was definitely a nod to the Western automakers. And they never said this, but you and I would immediately infer this by sitting there and listening to them, that it seems like the Chinese EV makers are trying to get as much as they can out of the Qualcomm silicon for their infotainment, because they watch movies, they do karaoke. What the US or North America and Europe would see as edge cases for an infotainment system, I think the Chinese consumer uses it a lot more, number one. And other side of that coin, Lay, is that I got the impression that the OEMs didn't know how powerful or how to get or extract every ounce of compute out of the silicon. And that's the whole challenge for Western, whether it's Volkswagen, there was a great story by David Welch in Bloomberg that talked a little bit in detail about what GM's doing. So we can talk about that for a few minutes. But, overall, they have a team going next week because they have a ton of clients. And will they be able to dethrone NVIDIA? It remains to be seen, because NVIDIA seems to be firmly planted on the intelligent driving side. And I don't know if any OEM would feel that comfortable giving the entire stack to one company like that.
And remember, while all of this is going on, every one of them have their own chip, either already in the vehicles or they're coming. NIO has the Tianji in the ET9. XPeng said they will put in their Turing chip in a production model in Q2. Li Auto has one that's coming. So
this is what Jensen's going to do. He's going to lower the price of his Orin chip. The next one is called Edison, isn't it?
Thor.
Something like that. Thor. He's going to lower the price of that.
Well, not only does he need to lower the price, he needs to reconfigure these chips. Speaking of H20 chips, that they have to meet regulatory requirements on both sides of the ocean.
The Trump administration knows that, and they're going to make it tougher and tougher and tougher to do that. I believe.
Jensen's like, whatever, we have unwavering commitment to serve the Chinese market. That's what he told the CCPIT chairman when they met in Beijing.
Now, did you get a chance to read this week what was it the MIIT talked about the intelligent driving?
Well, this is a good segue into the Shanghai Auto Show, because I think this is the biggest news coming out ahead of
and it's potentially a pretty big gray cloud.
Yeah, because of the Xiaomi SU7 accident. And notice Lei Jun recently has been very, very low-key in terms of putting out social media stuff. And they're not, it looks like, apparently they're not exhibiting the U7.
Oh, they're not? Okay.
Based on all I think there was a confirmation even on one of the Weibo posts by one of their executives that they're not exhibiting the U7, which I think may be the right approach, because everything drowns at the Shanghai Auto Show. And I'm certain that Xiaomi wants to make a splash individually.
Well, they'll have their own event for sure in Beijing,
as they always do. So this new,
and he'll sell phones along right before the unveil. He'll sell phones and other stuff.
Well, the car usually is the last thing, right? The one more thing. that comes out. And amidst more and more accidents recently involving this Ultra. So this MIT basically released a notice saying that they met with 60 representatives from automakers about the right use of marketing jargon. Things like, L2 plus, L2 plus plus. The smart driving is also being scrutinized because, one, for the accident, and two, the abusing not only of the end users, but the over marketing of these features by the OEMs themselves. So I think China realizes that we need to tone it down a little bit.
The MIT doesn't even want to imply in marketing that the vehicles can do more than what they're required to do for the feature. And I think that's the important part. They don't even want these companies to use words that imply that they do more.
Yeah, and then the Ministry of Public Security also came out with a statement. One of their research center put out kind of a notice basically saying, that the industry needs to be careful of the terminologies being used to describe features that are not really what people perceive them to be, or they think they're a little bit over the top. So
and you and I have fallen into this trap a little bit when we're driving the G9 because we felt so comfortable after just a few minutes. There was two of us, number one, so we're both pretty much paying attention. So that wasn't the issue. But yes, I could see driving for 20 kilometers feeling pretty comfortable. And in China, things do just pop up on roads. And especially in Anhui. So less likely in a Shanghai or Beijing, but in a lower tier city on a highway or some major road. And let's peel the layers of the onion back a little bit because we can describe, because we've never really described the accident in more detail. The owner wasn't driving. The vehicle was going pretty fast and it didn't brake. And then the mechanical mechanism
of the highway where there was kind of a what do you call it? The
construction.
Yeah, construction. You have to move to a lane on the other side of the road.
Right.
So yeah.
And then the other thing was the mechanical door handle to allow you to get out, because a lot of these EVs are connected smart vehicles now have, digital control of opening and closing doors. They couldn't find it, or it was harder to find. And so there seems to be, and I'm not saying Xiaomi is to blame for anything, but I think every OEM is now looking at every single thing that was pointed out during this investigation for their vehicles and are now going to stress and emphasize them.
And this is kind of a double-edged sword, I think, when it comes to the Chinese market and the smart EVs, because we talk about this involutions, Yuan. We talk about the China speed. We talk about refreshes coming less than every 12 months. And you see NIO is actively, they're working hard to push out the NT 2.5 models, the 5566, because if you don't, they look old, not only in terms of the design, but Xpeng talks about hardware update, OTA update, not only software. So this China speed, if it goes too fast, it backfires a little bit. I think that's what has happened with the Xiaomi accident being because it's a Xiaomi.
One of the reasons, yeah, I was just going to say that. It was one of the reasons is because it's a Xiaomi.
What if it was another brand? Would it have caused this much kind of the industry reaction? I don't know, right? And it's a new entrant, right? It's an external, a new force.
So let's just summarize again really quickly. In the United States, GM has Super Cruise, Ford has Blue Cruise, Tesla has FSD. Our vehicles, they're not really super smart. They're just lane assist and things like that. So not really smart driving. But in China, and you fill in the blanks of anybody I'm missing. Huawei is a major player. NIO has their system. Li Auto, Xpeng, BYD, is not going to offer its standard. So it's already pretty. Li Auto has a system and Great Wall has a system. So it's already pretty ubiquitous, which makes it very challenging now because they need to dial back their marketing and they need to take a long look at how things were designed, look at the findings of the investigation and make sure that their products don't have those vulnerabilities.
Yeah. I mean, everybody who's relevant nowadays has some sort of NOA, high levels of assisted. See, now I saw a couple of newer Horizon Robotics was organizing, doing a press event. And they specifically put urban assisted driving. Like they want to use proper words, Chinese characters.
Yeah.
And you're going to see that start to happen more and more. And also what this will affect is the pace at which OTA updates are pushed.
Right.
Could be slowed down.
Yeah.
Features, I think they talked about don't use the users as a
Beta test.
Guinea pig, right? Beta testers. I think it's good, right?
It's because they see that not only in China but the United States with one particular company. And the other thing, and this is just a simple thing, we might start seeing a lot more easy to find, easy to see mechanical door handles in vehicles again. Because remember our good friend Frank with the design of the GU 01, I don't remember physical door handles.
Yeah.
I think it was a touch and then it would open.
Voice.
Yeah. And so yeah, that I think that one of the biggest takeaways was it seemed like the people were trapped in the vehicle. And then CATL.
We don't have to give you the details, but if I was an investigator, would it have mattered upon impact? How, what was the cost of the death for any vehicle? But we don't have to get in details. But
the reason I know that for BYD, it was BYD batteries is because CATL put out a statement saying it wasn't their battery.
It wasn't their battery.
So, and really quickly, I got to go visit Aptera, which is the solar EV company in San Diego.
They were at CES a little bit.
John McElroy didn't have a lot of nice things to say about them in our chat yesterday. John is actually going to be in Shanghai.
Great for him.
Yeah, he's only going to be there 3 days, and so God bless him because that's pretty short.
I'm sure he'll be pampered.
And yeah, so he's going to go with CareSoft. I'm a little anxious, but I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah,
always love to be in Shanghai.
Speaking of the Aptera and the flying cars, XPeng, right? One of the things I remember was He Xiaopeng talking. They want to become the first company to produce annually 10,000 flying cars. Flying cars. Aircraft carrier or something. Yeah. Land aircraft carrier. Carriers, yeah.
So now I love the ambition, obviously, but just like anything else, frontier tech, cutting edge technology, like this intelligent driving, as more versions from different manufacturers go out in the wild, there's going to be accidents that really cause companies to pause. And so eVTOL is Wild West right now. I think there's a lot of optimism about that stuff, but could you imagine?
Yeah, the eVTOLs and the humanoid robots are, I think, in their kind of the warring period right now, especially in the Chinese market.
Yeah. So, let me see. There are no comments, Lei.
We still haven't talked about Shanghai yet.
Well, so you had tweeted.
Yeah.
But I also did. Let me do my comparison, and then you get in more detail. Sure. You dive deeper.
I'm looking at my notes right now.
So the Shanghai Auto Show is 17 football fields, and I think the New York Auto Show was like 4.
New York Auto Show is like one of is one hall. Shanghai Auto Show has
Shanghai Auto Show is 4
13,
times as large,
yeah,
almost 4
13
times
halls.
larger, and 1,000 exhibitors. I think you said, and
There are
then you
1,000
go ahead and you
exhibitors,
take over.
1,000 exhibitors from 26 countries. There's 8 halls of OEMs,
Just
4 halls,
OEMs, just OEMs.
4 halls dedicated to this year they call it the automotive technology and supply chain halls, which I personally would recommend for anyone that go there. If I can describe it like this: drive for show, puff for dough. Then for the auto industry, for Shanghai Auto Show, the OEM halls are for show, halls are for dough. So I'd rather.
But if I'm a first timer, I gotta go see all these cars. Because I told John, I said the only
Well,
thing that I would recommend, because John's obviously very knowledgeable about this. I would say, I told him, I was like, get to the BYD booth an hour before the press conference. That's what I told him.
yeah, I mean, if you're there for the first time, definitely, and only limited time that you had, definitely touch and feel the vehicles, look at the designs, look at the quality, look at the build quality, the features inside and outside, definitely do that. But if you have more time, then because in those tech halls, I'd rather pay attention to these newer Chinese tech companies. One, Zhuoyu, which is the DJI Automotive. Some of I think Deep Route is exhibiting. Pony, right? Some of these startup companies, Baolong Technology, which supplies the magic carpet for Li Auto, these are worth a visit. But back to the cars. I think a big theme we talked earlier in the show about relevancy and the foreign, whoever is exhibiting, we talked about tripling down, doubling down. We can definitely see who are the ones tripling down and doubling down at this year's auto show, Shanghai Auto Show, from the foreign automaker camp. The reason is we're increasingly seeing this in China for China, Chinese tech inside vehicles developed purely in the Chinese market for the Chinese market. And that is true for Volkswagen, for Audi, for Toyota, for Nissan, for Honda. That's about it. That's the only foreign automakers I can think of that are really still relevant.
The requirements, the Chinese requirements for local technology is one of the reasons, but also generally speaking, the traditional tier ones, the Contis, the Aptivs, they don't have the stacks, they don't have the innovation at the levels and the ability to just plug in fairly seamlessly with the Chinese EV makers. So I think that's why you're seeing all these technology companies being highlighted, basically technology companies with automotive divisions. So let me give a list to everyone of the companies that are not going to be showcasing outside of Hyundai, Kia, which you had already mentioned. So Lamborghini, Maserati, Rolls-Royce, Jaguar Land Rover, Polestar, which is surprising a little bit, but they don't really have anything new to show. Chevrolet is not, Subaru will not be, Skoda, which is already pretty much left the building. Neta is not showing. Jetta and Citroen Peugeot is not showing. So any surprises in that list?
No, not really.
Yeah, me neither.
Tesla's not going to be there, right? But
although
Tesla doesn't want to
Lamborghini
be at
is
the auto shows.
Lamborghini is a little surprised, but I think ultra luxury is down as well, not just Porsche. So, what else? Any debuts you're looking forward to? I loved how you did a plan by plan and then did a couple of debuts for each showroom.
I'm looking at this notes I have. I mean, there's 8 halls of the car brands, and it's
I'm gonna miss complete halls because I can only go for 2 days, and obviously the first day is you and me running around.
Yeah,
The second day is just for me to check out the car, sit in them, take pictures of them.
Yeah, I definitely want to spend a little more time, maybe outside of the press days, to kind of go over things again. But it's as much relevant and what's the word? A telltale sign of what they're exhibiting, as well as who are exhibiting next to each other. This is what's fun about Shanghai. A great example is Volkswagen Group almost has its own hall, but guess who's exhibiting right next to Volkswagen Group? XPeng and Horizon Robotics. And for those who know, these two companies are helping Volkswagen to be relevant in China. And Volkswagen Group is showing 3 Volkswagen branded concepts, EV concepts, plus the new Audi E5 Sportback. AUDI capitalized.
Goodness.
So I think that'll be interesting. And plus, they just announced this AI ADAS that they're going to launch based on the joint venture with Horizon Robotics called Carizon, whatever.
Jeez.
And remember, XPeng and the Horizon Robotics deal were done after the previous Shanghai Auto Show, is when the foreign automakers got shocked. And that shock moved immediately into action. And this ADAS they're launching is basically what they did in the last 18 months since November 2023. Volkswagen says we did it in 18 months, and we're going to put it on one of our vehicles this year with help from Horizon Robotics. I think they have 500 people in that joint venture. 18 months, right? They call it China speed. So that's the interesting thing, at least from the Volkswagen perspective. Yeah.
So I swear I saw a comment here from Cut the. So I don't see it anymore. It's the weirdest thing.
And then
you keep talking.
Yeah, I'll keep. And then one of the halls is I call it the SAIC Motor has the home court advantage hall because it's all of their subsidiary brands and joint ventures exhibiting in that one hall. And I think the only thing that are new to me is the Joseph Caban, the former head of Volkswagen brand, global head of design, is now their senior director of design for SAIC Motor. And he's putting out 2 Rowe concepts, right? So that's another.
Is it Rowe or Rowe?
Rowe. I call it Rowe. By the way, SAIC just recently announced this new Shangjie brand.
Yeah, I saw that.
Huawei. It looks like it's going to be a Huawei Insight type of collaboration. And then Buick and Cadillac are exhibiting, but I don't know, Cadillac's showing something called a Lyric V and a Love family. Lyric, Optic, Vistic, and the Escalade IQ. They call it the Love family. Buick still continuing to ban what they call it on the GLA.
GL8.
Yeah, new model called the Lu Shang. Yeah, so SAIC Motor, Volkswagen Group. And then interestingly, one of the other halls is the BYD, I call it BYD Momenta inside Toyota Nissan hall. They're all together. Nissan is showing their engine with Momenta inside. And Toyota is debuting the BZ7. And one thing about Toyota that's interesting, I think in the presser they put out is they have a new Chinese at the helm as the president of Toyota China entity. And all of their press conferences are going to be done by Chinese executives. No more Japanese. And they said they want to show this so that they want to reflect the strategy that they're becoming more Chinese and have decision-making be done in China by these Chinese executives.
So the question I got from Cut the Nozzle, or we got, was whether a BYD could be simultaneously homologated in the US and Mexico. and the vehicle can be purchased in Mexico and just the tariff paid and then driven or shipped up to the United States. I think so. So BYDs cross the border in California all the time. I would imagine that a few of them cross the border in Texas quite often. Now, there would be some challenges if you were to purchase it in Mexico and use it in the United States. I think there would be OTA challenges to get updates on the software. I think that's kind of the main thing. And then obviously to provide service for it, I think that you'd have to go back to Mexico to do that. So practical challenges. But if you lived at the border of Mexico and the United States, you know.
Yeah, so I was in Cancun recently, right? The BYD King, I think, is a plug-in. It's about equivalent of $25,000 in Mexico. So that's a reference point. And back to the show,
but their vehicles in Mexico are still fairly limited. The products that they're selling. So the Shark is there, but when I spoke with Sandy Monroe, he wasn't that impressed. He said that the Shark is probably one of their least low quality vehicles.
Yeah. And then one of the halls has what I call the Geely, Huawei, Li Auto, and Hongqi. And interestingly enough, look at Geely. The Galaxy is launching a flagship. Zeekr is coming out with the 9X, which is called the Hangzhou Bay Cullinan.
Hangzhou Bay Cullinan.
And the 009 Grand is launching a new derivative. Lynk & Co. has the 900. Chang'an Mazda in this hall is revealing its EZ60. Li Auto is unveiling the i8 and possibly some of their newer smart driving editions of the L series. Yeah.
Hold on.
And then here it is. One of the halls has GWM and BMW tongue twister. I call it the tongue twister hall. They're together, which is kind of interesting because they have a joint venture producing minis, EVs in China. And next to them, we have to, we can't talk about the Shanghai Auto Show without talking about the all-important NIO group. This is the 5th year already that NIO is exhibiting in Shanghai. So 5th time since 2017. But they have a new family member. The Firefly is launching tomorrow. Very controversial product, I think. One of the reasons being the lack of availability of battery swapping initially.
Yes.
For that model. I think it's a headache for them to price the vehicle properly. And I think we'll have to see what type of battery as a service pricing they announce tomorrow. Could it be below 100,000 RMB? We don't know. And Envo, which is exhibiting at another hall, is releasing the L90, which is also a bit controversial because I tweeted about, some of the people tweeted about it being looking at as a BMW design in the back, the lighting, and to be honest, the L60 hasn't gotten that much traction. More recently, they've seen an upshot in orders because of the new incentives that they put out. But as we said many times on this show, we want to look for that consistency irrespective of the incentives, which others are showing. Xpeng is showing. So I don't really like when a certain brand, the volumes goes up and then it goes down and then you have to resort back to incentives to push the volumes back up again.
Yeah,
I don't like that. Personally,
that's the price war, man.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and NIO recently delivered their 100,000th brand in Shanghai, so that shows you how important the Shanghai market is to this brand.
Oh my goodness, man! You and I always. I don't really do this for other auto shows. I guess I do a little bit, but definitely need the game plan for this one. Have a strategy of where to go, what time things are happening, and try to try to be there a few minutes before. It's impossible. It's impossible.
My strategy is just to pick one hall and stay there. That's my strategy. No.
Well, we might have to divide and conquer then.
Well, we know that Xiaomi's, if they're not doing the U7, then I can at least say, I don't have to worry about Xiaomi because they're only showing the SU7 and the Ultra. I like to touch and feel the Ultra, but whereas last year in Beijing, if you remember, that whole hall was packed.
Yes.
Because Xiaomi was, they're the traffic getter. I don't know what's going to happen this year.
Well, I don't know if he wants to be that guy this year.
Yeah.
Because I don't think he wants 40 people following him.
Yeah. And then two German premium brands. Mercedes is going to show the China exclusive long wheelbase of the CLA, new CLA. BMW is going to show a
Neue Klasse cockpit.
A driving pleasure edition of the Neue Klasse, still in concept, because they're going to start production locally next year in Shenyang.
And Qualcomm did say that they will be making a few announcements at the Shanghai Auto Show. So, wow, I thought this show was going to be short, but it's running a little bit.
This show is probably going to be our last live show for some time in the next few weeks.
I don't want to say that. I say we try it. Maybe we can try it, but it's going to be tough.
It's chaos.
And so, it's tough because it's hard to broadcast, number one, live. Number two, I don't even know what I have. A list of the days that I'm there, and I have a column that says the things that I need to do, and they'll change on a daily basis, I'm sure.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's interesting. So who is surrounding Xiaomi in that hall? It's CATL, it's Onvo, it's Ford, it's Honda, it's Leapmotor, and Dongfeng Motor. I don't know what Ford is showing, really.
Goodness.
CATL, you definitely want to go check out CATL, because one of the things that one of the narratives at this year's Shanghai Auto Show is to see what type of announcements that come out of the battery swapping network.
Oh, and the megawatt charging too.
Yeah, well, speaking of megawatt charging, Huawei is supposed to announce, maybe they already have, today or tomorrow, a 1.5 megawatt charging.
I thought it was 1.33.
No, BYD is 1.2, I think. But as you know, in China, these numbers, nobody is at the top. Someone always comes out with one.
Well, and I was kind of doing a bit of research. These chargers cost a lot of money.
Sure.
But that's all I had.
Yeah.
There was a question. So to answer your question, SPX, I would just follow Lei and I and actively watch our feeds to see what I'm up to, what he's up to. We'll be together quite a bit, but also separate for a little bit. And because we might have a surprise for everyone like we did last year.
So that's still being in the works. So
and then hopefully there's not a damper on it because of what happened with the Xiaomi car. But so everyone, unless you have anything else, Lei?
No, I think we've already done over an hour. So try to keep it not too long.
Somebody just wrote something here. Sounds good. Have a great time. There you guys. There you go. Cool, man. Everyone, have a good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Lei, I will see you in the Who.
I will see you in the Who.
Later, man.
Yep.
That brings us to the end of this week's show. Lei and I thank you for tuning in. My name is Tu Lee, and you can find me on Twitter at Sino Auto Insight. That's SinoAutoInsight. You can find Lei on Twitter at LeiXing77. That's LEIXING77. If you wouldn't mind rating and or reviewing us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you grab your podcast from, we'd appreciate that as well. Even better, if you enjoy this show, please tell your friends about it. Please join us again next week as we track down all the latest news on China, EVs, and more.